My grandmother's very Catholic. She saw a picture of me last year with Mark, my husband, and she's like, "Oh, Courtney," which is my younger sister, "is looking great." And my mother's like, "That's not Courtney." My name is Chris Cochran. I'm originally from Cape Breton, but for the last 13 years, I've been known as Elle Noir here in Halifax. People say that I'm, especially the drag community, that I'm kind of full of myself, that I'm a little overconfident, but that's because I'm so not confident. I'm the least confident person in the world. I'm originally from Glace Bay, which is a very small town in Cape Breton. I've always saw myself in a wedding dress, even as a kid, a wedding dress, getting married, and it never really clicked until I got older and started understanding. There was no shock to anybody when I decided to tell them, "Hey, I think I might be gay." They're like, "No, really." I went from being in high school to right into the Navy. 2004 is when I moved to Halifax. And then 2005 is when I first did my first drag. I did it as a dare. I looked busted. I was horrible. I looked horrible. Like, if I met myself now, I'd be like, what are you doing? Some of my friends were like, "Hey, there's a competition held by LuLaRoe, and it was called 5 Minutes of Fame." So basically, anybody could come perform. If you won, you got $200. Well, the first time I went and performed, I looked a busted mess, but I performed well, and Lulu said, "You look fantastic, but don't come back on my stage unless you have a real pair of heels." I went and I bought like 6 pairs of heels, and I came back, and I ended up winning 5 Minutes of Fame. And then I got really, really into pageants, and so it was Chris Cochran, the sailor by day, and Elle Noir when I was performing at night. I took my drag stuff with me when I went for my NATO tour, and I would search a port before we went into that port and find like the gay bars that would be far away, so that if I was at a bar and if somebody from my ship or somebody that I knew wandered in, I knew that, well, hey, you can't just find this place by accident. I performed in Spain and Amsterdam and Portugal, and I would go to the bar during the day, tell them who I was and where I was from, and then I would come back dressed as Elle Noir that night and perform for them. It was getting to the point where I was in drag more than I was myself, and then I started to realize, hey, maybe it's not just the drag, maybe it's the act of being a woman. That's when I think the doors came flying off the closet, I guess you could say. And I decided to start transitioning so I can, finally be the person that I want to be. So 9 years I've been transitioning, and it's always going to be scary because it's something that's changing yourself. There's a lot of transgendered women and transgendered men that have become transgender people because at first they were doing drag. I see myself now as fully who I am, but then I get home and I take all my clothes off and I'm like, ugh, it's still there.
What do you want me to do?
Probably find parking where we usually go. Probably over on Cornwallis.
Yeah.
Let's see. In 2013, I met my future husband. 5 years ago, he was a divorced, straight grandfather of one with 2 grown kids. And now, we now have 4 grandchildren. And they also know me as Emma. They don't call me Grandma because I'm way too young to be called Grandma.
Good evening.
Sorry, folks. Go on. Tonight is the High Heel Awards, and that's where all of Halifax's best drag is getting awards and stuff. I just love performing, so it's kind of like a release thing, I've been working all week, and I've been having no time to myself or anything like that, so the funny thing is when I'm on stage, I feel like I have time for myself. I like being able to be a chameleon, being able to change. I tend to do a lot of the black performers because, I am a black performer here in Halifax. If you want to be a successful queen, you need to know how to be diverse. You need to know how to do Beyonce, but you also need to know how to do your Etta Jameses and your Tina Turners and your Janet Jacksons, your old school girls too. Drag queens are known as being the catty, bitchy, rude drag queens and stuff like that, but that's on stage. But in person, you being a bitch is exhausting. You have to remember that every time you're on stage or every time you're out in person and somebody asks you something, be that person and step up. I had an old drag queen named Tita Parlo who told me once that, you know what, you might not be Beyonce, but you're the only Beyonce that person has ever seen. So when they come up and they ask you for your autograph, you be generous, you say thank you as many times as you need to, and then you walk away. But you never be rude to people. The only thing that's really been in constant for my whole adult life has been Elle Noir.
Because of 2017, Miss Elle Noir!
You know, even speak in front of people, I used to cry, you know, start tearing up because I couldn't do it. It was just kind of funny to me because, you know, I used to want to hide all the time, but now I want to be in the forefront. And she was a way for me to kind of be out in public without being out in public. And that's kind of how I got to be who I am and got my confidence, I guess.